For more information on my programs, please visit masajady.com. That's MASSAJADY.com. Hello, this is Masati. Welcome to my podcast, Xponential Intelligence. This podcast is part of the series, very exciting series, called Live Conversations with Dead People. I just want to clarify just a few notes, clarifications on what I actually do. One, I don't channel dead people. I don't channel anybody. So what do I do when I say live conversations with dead people? Is that there's a consciousness. That consciousness is timeless. Call it, if you will, your spirit. I call it your vital force. That vital force, again, a consciousness that gets created by an individual from this physical realm that gets created into a timeless realm. It's like a cloud storage, right? So I have that ability to access that cloud storage of that identity that I'll reveal to you in just a minute. So that's the science behind it. Again, it's very different than what scientists or what religious or spiritual type individuals understand about, say, connecting or channeling or anything like that. By the way, this is the consciousness, or this method is used by geniuses, inventors, and so on. So where inventions come in, like, for example, Tesla or Einstein, whether they believed in God or not, it didn't matter. That consciousness, and they even said it themselves, is that they would connect to something out there. Einstein called it something, forgot what it is. Tesla named it something as well. So they didn't even know what that was about, but that's where all their abilities, their great inventions, concepts, ideas came about. Okay? So again, this consciousness that gets created, just like a cloud storage, whether you're here physically or not, that identity or memory bank, if you will, is recorded at some level, okay? Somewhere. Let's call it a spiritual cloud, if you will. That's what I do. I access that spiritual cloud of this identity of our very special guest, Freddie Mercury. Freddie, and we'll just make it a live conversation, act as if he is actually here. But again, I just want you to note it's his consciousness that is here, not him. Although, and this might get off the subject, but while you're interested, like many of you are, a lot of times what happens is that people who die, and that's why I bring this up, a lot of individuals actually who cross over, who die, they never really awaken to the fact that they're dead. Unfortunately, especially with today's medicines and so on, or the way the health system works, especially here in the U.S., what happens is that their life gets terminated. Here, that consciousness that goes into just a bit higher realm, because they don't know that they're dead, and then they think that they're still alive. So that consciousness starts getting distorted because they're there, thinking that they're there in real form without a physical body, okay? And then it affects the family members. So that's why I bring it up. But that's a side note. Let me just take just a few seconds. Freddie's here already. He's very meticulous, by the way. That consciousness, very, very meticulous. Everything has to be like perfect, in perfection. Not of his whole life, from what I'm seeing, but in certain aspects of his life. And what he's telling me, and again, he's not really telling me this, but I'm just, as I go through his album or go through his files, his cloud storage, like I was talking about, right? You start to, say, investigate somebody's life. It's more of that way. But again, we'll just turn it into a live conversation, because then it flows easier for me, flows easier with that connection with this consciousness that we identify as Freddie Mercury. Right? Now, his Freddie Mercury, obviously not his real name. His name is Farouk. I forgot his last name. Doesn't come through. And as a note, by the way, I don't get details like names or clothing, or although sometimes I do, because I'm not that type of I don't connect in that way. I'm more interested in, say, the patterns. So, for example, a database example, and then we'll get on to the conversation. So, just hold on there, Freddie. Is that there's like psychics, right? Like the Long Island psychic and so on, like that. What they do, and again, it's a physical space. Right? I connect to a much higher space. What they do is they connect to, say, the contents. Think of it as a database. They would connect to the contents that's stored in that database. Again, more of a physicalness of the database, right? What I do is I actually connect and start reading the patterns of the database, okay? Or how, say, the function of the data would be stored within that database. So, for example, in this example, say you have a telephone format or a social security format. You just type in the numbers, the database would like retrieve it or store it in a social security or telephone number format, right? So my abilities again are more of how the database is designed and not what's stored in the database, right? So it's a much higher level understanding, because then you get to understand, say, the mechanics. And this is where I see patterns in people. That's why I talk about this. This is where I see patterns, not necessarily, say, exact events, although within seconds I can tap into those exact events if a person is needed to jog their memory. But again, for me, it's more efficient to see patterns of how that person's database, so to speak, worked or held its knowledge or information. Okay? So in Freddie's case, jumping back into him now that we get a little information on how I work, is that it's very meticulous, not in all aspects of his life. It's very interesting. In some aspects of his life, it was very distorted, very messy, so to speak. And then the other half of his life, when it comes to music, when it comes to, say, perfection or art or creativity, very, very meticulous, almost like a surgeon, from what I'm seeing. Quite interesting. By the way, to have like almost a dichotomy of extremes, and hence a lot of his life, you would see that extreme as well. Very flamboyant, very aggressive, very cocky on one side, but then on the flip side, which probably not a lot of people probably knew, very quiet, very introverted, very introspective, and actually felt like being alone most often. And there's a point to that being alone, because for him, being alone wasn't really being alone. It was always about having another identity, almost like a twin brother that he would take care of. It's actually a very nurturing type individual. So, as more information, and by the way, guys, this is like going through files. This is like going through someone's house after they've crossed over. You get to see little aspects here and there, right? So it comes in kind of spotty. So it's not going to be a linear type progression, but like, oh, I found this over here. Oh, I found this over here. Oh, this file contains this. What does this photo album contain? So, kind of going back into his childhood, since he was the age of, I want to say 2 or 3, very creative. In fact, so creative that his father kind of got scared, from what I'm understanding, on how creative he was. It's almost like when he would look at you, especially his father, maybe a little insecure. Nice man, though, by the way. He could look at you and people would feel scared about him. Like he could look at you and then know all the secrets that you were hiding. Okay? So kind of put him off on, say, the wrong foot, because a lot of times when that happens, and in this case it happened to him, is that it scares a lot of people. Uh, I get into that same situation. People look at me, they get a little scared, and then they start to see their reflection, their distortions in the pure reflection that I am, right? Because I'm a clear mirror for them. Same thing with Freddie. But the difference between Freddie and me is that I'm a pure reflection. What he would do is actually have, say, a sidekick or a friend that would kind of always hung around him since the age of 2, 3, and throughout, it's like 4, 5, and 6, they got very, very close. It's almost like an intimate type relationship. And psychologists would go, well, it's like people who almost create another identity, another personality in their mind, but in fact, it's not another personality. It's not an imagination of their mind or anything like that. It literally is, say, another identity. And they had a lot of fun together. By the way, they would probably go into, say, different worlds, different aspects, different realities, and so on. This is where Freddie really got in tune with rhythm, patterns. They would go. They would go into. There's so much information coming in now. So they would go into almost like different realities, and within those realities, a lot of beautiful shapes. By the way, a lot of math involved. Was he good in math? Yeah, actually, he was very good in math. So, a lot of shapes, a lot of colors, and from what I'm seeing is that. Trying to explain it the best way possible is that these shapes and these colors were not of this physical world. So these shapes and colors would go beyond our threshold, let's say, of perception or visual, say, color scheme, right? And again, I don't know, say, the very tiny spectrum of visual light that we can see. When he would go into these other realities, he could actually, say, expand on that. So right now we see the visual light. We see, the whole spectrum of colors. You can't say, for example, you can't see another color because you're already seeing all the possible colors. So you can't, say, create another color. You can identify another color, label it, but again, your eyes see the full spectrum of all the colors that could possibly be here. But in another realm, say your eye function, the mechanics of your eyes would work differently, like a rabbit's eye or a hawk's eye or even a bee's eye, right? They don't see the same color spectrum as us, so they would see, for example, a bee, different colors when they look at flowers, right? Because they're more interested in pollen. So in Freddie's case, and I go a little in depth on this because it's actually truly amazing. In Freddie's case, he could almost see like more colors than the human eye could see. He had trained, or it's kind of like learning, right, to see more of an expansive color. Now, I don't know if you can do that in this physical realm, but if you had somebody like a sidekick, and I'll talk about that sidekick later on, but amazing abilities to, again, have an expansive, more expansive than the human eye, more expansive than the human ear, more expansive. He was very, in this reality, we would call it being highly alert or highly sensitive, but there's a huge difference, right? Although we would just label him that way, or psychologists would label him that way, he wasn't. He could literally see more of an expansive threshold, vision, hearing, smell. No, he wasn't interested in smells that much. Vision, hearing, sensing, sensations, touch. Yeah, those things were again labeled as highly sensitive, but very different. Those literally he would see from another reality. So, um, actually, it's for me, it's actually very interesting because you think we're limited to our human potential here, but then we can even expand upon that human potential. So that's why it really psychs me up to, and amazing what he's accomplished, or what humans, the potentiality of humans can accomplish, because that's what exponential intelligence is all about, right? High performance humans, or what I call archetype superhuman. So he would be in that superhuman category. Um, um, oh, so this is the reason why I guess I talk about it, intrigued about it more. From what I'm understanding is that, um, wow, okay, so, and this is why his mouth structure, his throat structure, his vision, even his hearing acuity is different. So if somebody, they did an autopsy on him, they would see that, um, they would see that it would be his structure, his eyes, his nose, his ears, his throat, his vocal cords would be very different. It's to adapt or to accommodate the expansiveness of 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 what he say saw. So, for example, our eyes, again, I don't know the numbers, but a very narrow threshold of frequency, and that's all we've learned. Right now, if your eyes, in this case, his vocal cords, were say expanded to say somehow understand, say, a wider threshold of frequencies, then your eyes would function different. Reason why I bring this up, he used this to create, say, amazing tones. He had a wide array or range. Sorry, I'm not a music guy. He had a wide range, or he could, yeah. His vocal cords were very different. Actually, his throat structure and everything about it was very, very different for him. Again, for that reason that I talked about earlier, which still amazes me. I can't get over it. So, excuse me if I keep going on and on, because it's like a little kid in a candy store. It's like, holy crap, can anybody do this? But he's done it. Very exciting. So, again, just to recap, his vocal cords, or as this, yeah, as he grew, his vocal cords, even his jaw structure, something about his teeth or whatever, was to accommodate, say, the sounds that he heard from, say, this reality that they would go, that he or they would go to. Um, Very interesting. Very, very adaptive. And that's how, if you think about it, it's just amazing how humans can adapt. Think about it, what they can do, or what you could do, or what you can create if you had, say, the knowledge or access of what could be possible for you. So, um, and as a note, for those who are, say, sensitive, or who have practiced EI to a point where they can look over my shoulders, you could, say, tap into a same consciousness of what we labeled, say, Freddie Mercury. And by the way, I'm going to be answering some of the questions that we've called over or what you've sent in. Right? So, but I just amazed what else. So throughout his teens, his early, pre-puberty. So, and this is another thing too, is that it's not just his vocal cords, his jaw structure, his hearing, his eyes. Again, very different, right? To adapt. Um, um, as he grew, obviously, his body chemistry was a little different. Again, not say of this plane. I'm not saying he's alien or anything like that. He's not. Very human, but again, say that in say in a certain culture, your hands were used quite a bit, right? Over time, you develop say bigger hands, you'd adapt. So the same thing here. He spent more time, say in another reality. Even while he were this like daydreaming, so to speak, he was more of that space of that reality than this reality. So his body, his human body, not anything else, adapted to it. So his sidekick, who is his sidekick? His twin brother. Feels like a twin brother. So yeah, he was actually say a twin. Obviously, one didn't make it. So the twin brother literally was on the other side, and they were very close, just like say of twin. They were connected, but each one had their own identity. So, which is very interesting, and this is what makes it different. Most individuals say who run this pattern, right? You're a twin, one of you dies, that one identity, that one presence, that one presence, say is connected with you, but doesn't understand that it's a separate personality than the live person, and that's where it gets distorting. In Freddie's case, what happens is that twin goes, "Hey, I'm dead. I'm totally awake. I know that I'm dead, but I'm just going to hang out. I'm just going to hang out with you and kind of understand what human experience would have been if I was here through your eyes, through your body." So, and Freddie was fine with that. So again, this is where it gets distorting. If you're both not understanding, right, that you're separate beings in one space, right, it would get distorting. Like again, that's where a lot of cases that I see. But in his case, again, a fantastic turn of events, where both identities knew who they were, and this is where Freddie, if you say talk to him or if you knew him, or even on stage, that persona, he knew who he was, right? And the reason why that it goes more than say becoming. When you met Freddie, even as a young child, from what I'm seeing, is that well he he knew who he was. Right? Very clearly, he knew who he was. So what that means is that what that means is that, and again, I might be repeating myself. So what that means is that when you have an identity that's so aware, right, especially a timeless identity, right, your spirit, so to speak, I call it your vital force. They're so aware of who they are, and then they're attached to a physical identity, a physical rendering of who we are here, right? That reflection between timeless and time-bound identities is so crisp and clear, right? Precision and clear, like surgical, clean. What happens is that who's ever rendering, even if that personality or that spirit is not of you, right? It's connected to you at such a deep level, that mere reflection of what that spirit is, right, or that your vital force when it comes time for, say, Freddie's spirit to render itself here, it understands, because again, it has a mere reflection of to look at it. It creates such a perfection, and again, not physical things, but an identity of who that person is. That identity is not based on knowledge of this realm, like most individuals, right? They have an identity. You tell somebody who they are. It's like, I'm a mother, so and so's, spouse. I'm a doctor. I did this. Nothing like that. You still don't understand who you are, right? You are of, say, a higher knowledge, spirit, having a physical identity. Here, Freddie knew that at such a deep level. And that's why um, some people will call it an identity crisis, if you will, because, well, although he would be more normal than your normal individual, right? How many people would you know? I only know Freddie. Um, how many people do you know that is that crystal clear on their identity? No matter how much success they have, no matter how much power they have, no matter how much whatever, physical identities that they have here. I'm not knocking any of that down, but they still lack identity. So, again, very interesting. Let's go into the questions, and as more detail comes up, we'll talk about it. Oh, so the twin, again, hopefully it was recorded in the first section. He had a twin, and they would collaborate together. So here's some of the questions: is what was and is music to you? Very interesting question. So if you listen to the first part of the podcast where I talk about the way he saw music, or colors or patterns, again, more so than of this reality, well, music was, say, a functioning or a rendering of or a reflection of what could be. So in his music, it wasn't just the words that he chose, because the words, and that's what I think he was very, say, limited, or I want to say frustrated, because the words. Just think, there's so many words in the English language or any other language compared to the possibilities that could be. Now, for a person that has even expanded, say, the visual, hearing, and so on, possibilities even more, well, those meanings that he tried to portray or get into, his music, well, they can't even be classified, because there wouldn't even be words for something that's not doesn't even exist in this reality. So he was frustrated with the words. So although and even at times frustrated with, say, the musical instrument, because while they couldn't capture, the sounds and so on, right, or the notes that he could hear, because again, nobody else could hear it, even if he could. So what he did was, that essence, and that's why his music is so, say, enticing to many individuals, because mm, it comes from the music, although not captured completely, right? That music still has, say, a timeless type structure to it, or his words have a timeless type structure, so it has depth. Okay? So what was in his music? Hopefully that answered that question. Um, it says, more than a musician, you are a legend. Please share what makes one a legend. What sets Queen apart from all other bands? Well, so the other band members, from what I'm seeing, is that when they got together, because Freddie just couldn't be, say, a standalone, because he had to have, say, components, right, of other individuals to, say, create this full spectrum. of music. Say that a human can, I don't know, range from say 0 to 10, right? And then Freddie could range from 0 to 20 or 30. And again, these numbers are just giving you examples or for clarity. So he had to find band members that could go 0 to 10, and then somebody to fill in, you know, uh, uh, well, um, well, let me clarify. So, say normal human, 0 to 5, okay? And Freddie's Freddie's range could be like 0 to 20. So he had band members, right? 0 to 5, and then 5 to 10. 10 to 15, 15 to 20. So in a sense, he would create a full spectrum. That's what made Queen so powerful. It was more than just say an integration. That's why, by the way, when you work at those levels, just think of it. You go off, and you go off and try to create another band or go solo. You can't do that because then, well, your music would be flat to you. It wouldn't work the same. You always seem to be incredibly confident. Is there anything or anyone that would make you lose confidence? It's a very funny question, because he didn't see himself as confident. He was very unsure of himself, although he knew who he was. He knew at a very, very deep level who he was. He saw the world, and he knew that the world saw him very differently. For example, say you're from a foreign country, you come here, although you could be very successful, very confident, in your culture, then you come to a new culture, where you're not so confident. So to him, it's kind of interesting that you asked this question. Yeah, he kind of sees it as, well, ironic that somebody would ask him, that question of, say, confidence, because again, very different type of individuals, on stage and then in private as well. But that doesn't mean he'd lack confidence. He goes way beyond, say, the confidence, or how we label or define confidence. So, how do you receive your creative inspiration? Well, from what I've told you, again, that creative inspiration comes from in that other realm, helped by his twin. Again, this is another thing that goes back to this. And by the way, I haven't read these questions. It's very interesting. I haven't read these questions before. Can you talk about your ability, desire to break boundaries and creative challenges, societal norms? Of course, when you see the possibilities far ahead of their times, right? So in the future, if you think about it, we'll probably have more of an ability to see, say, more colors or more, shapes, even, so to speak, or sensations and so on like that, because our say tools. Again, our sense of touch, our ears, our eyes, those would be upgraded. So, um, so those are breaking the boundaries, and in turn, uh, you would break the boundaries, um, of anything, right? Any social norm, because you would see, say, a higher version of that self. You would see a higher version of, say, the potential of humans, which gets into, say, more of his personal issues. And we'll talk about that. I'm sure there's a question on that here. Um, Societal norms, yeah, creativity challenges societal norms. So society. Well, let's just talk about it here. So the societal norms, right? You're seeing an expansive human, okay? Um, and I want to talk about that. So an expansive human, you see the possibilities, but as you become expansive, right? Those frequencies are different, say, than what a normal body can handle. So that's why he had, say, some physical challenges with his body, although he had a ton of energy, right? This ton of energy, where did that come from? He ran from his potentiality that he had, again, of a higher reality. Right? Sometimes, or a lot of times, what happens is that, and again, there's not a lot of people that run from that, but I run from that sometimes when I'm doing, long events or so on 13, 14, 16 hours. I can run straight because I don't operate from this reality. He doesn't operate from this reality. So your body can sustain itself. Don't need food, you don't need water, you don't need rest. You again literally energize yourself that way. But for him, resonating at such a frequency all the time, I go in and out. So it rejuvenates. But for him, again, it deteriorates the body, especially the body can't say keep up with it. So technologically, his body couldn't say advance or hold onto some of those frequencies. So it was a little weaker, but still pretty powerful. So societal norms, again, kind of missed the question. The societal norms. So when you're seeing things from a higher perspective, you look at the way humanity runs, right? The norms, the standards, the cultures, the morality issues, and so on like that. You look at society, and it's like, my goodness, it's not as optimal, right? It's a lot of confusion because, well, there's so many different, say, moral values, moral objectives, and he's going again more of the way I look at it. He's going, it's like, well, why can't we have a higher moral objective where it didn't matter from culture to culture, and society to society, or age groups or ethnicity or anything like that? So he's more of that, more of that. So he would try to, say, push that higher, say, understanding. But as a note, though, I just want to make sure that although he was aware that he was different. He didn't see it precisely the way I explain it. Okay, so I'm looking at it from an outside individual. Again, looking at it more of a scientific understanding on why he was the way he was. Although he had that clarity, he didn't know. His twin brother, although he knew that he would, say, converse with somebody, right? For him, it's like, oh, it's just somebody that I made up, or it's in my conscious field. He didn't go, oh, that's my twin brother. He's of a higher, say, spirit. He takes me into, say, different realms and realities. He didn't think of it that way. It's just like, wow, I have these abilities. And with this made up, say, made up friend, because a lot of people, a lot of kids, especially, right? They make believe friends. And most of the time, those make believe friends aren't so make believe. So in his case, his make believe friend wasn't so make believe, which would take him into those, say, other realms. Okay? But again, more real than what he thought. What awakened you to clean up and cut toxic people out of your life? Interesting question. Is that, over time, he's always, it's always like he's always awake, and he's always seen, say, or wanted to see the best out of people, see the potential out of people. But then he gave people more credit because he never really fit in, not because he was different color, and the simple things that people don't feel like they fit in, or they're not wearing the right shoes, and all that garbage. He really didn't fit in because, well, he chemically or frequency wise, he didn't fit in. So, so and that's how he started to understand. He loved people, say so much, and he trusted people um, at a deeper level because he thought, well, they're humans, they know what they're doing, right? Better than I would. So, well, you would trust or fall into that trust. And then what do humans do? They fuck up a lot. They mistreat people. They mistreat themselves. Obviously they mistreat others as well. He started to awaken from that. Um, and then taking the drugs that he did, um, it's more the reason why, or the reason why he fell into that space is that the drugs in a lot of times would actually make him feel more human, more palatable. Because if you're say one fish, all the other fish is say colored orange, and you're that one fish that's not. That's how you feel, right? You want to be say that color orange. So the drugs, unfortunately, addictions. That's why he would take. So it's a different reason than why most people. Well, I guess it's the same because I guess him and most people are trying to escape who they are, right? Again, individuals try to escape who they are by taking drugs, right? They forget about themselves. Well, Freddie, he wanted to forget about himself and come into the human space. The difference is that humans want to forget about themselves and go to that higher space. So that's why I say it's a little different. Um, so as he awakened, right, there's that awakening space and that jarring feeling from what I'm seeing. An event happened. It's almost like he had a dream. It wasn't a dream. It literally his so when he would sleep at times, and this is very distorting for him as well, that other identity would kind of come in, and kind of teach him, clean him up, and so on like that. Finally, that other identity say got to him. It's like um, from what I'm seeing, 'cause that other identity is like a bodyguard almost. So um, one event happened. He's just like, oh, I get it. I'm more of a evolved human being than most humans, and that's where he kind of flipped it around. And instead of being, kind of blind and just loving people the way they are, he finally realized, well, that people are really stupid. They do a lot of say corrupt things, and it's like, okay, I got to take back the control. And that's where he pulled away, just cleaned up a lot faster than how most people like would handle their addictions or break ties. Because once somebody wakes up like that, like he did, it's like, oh, that's the way it works. Well, when it becomes that clear to you, and again from a higher function, from a higher frequency, uh, once you come into that consciousness, well, just like Einstein said, once if you're resonating in something, there's no way in hell that, and he didn't say that, I'm just paraphrasing Einstein, there's no way in hell that, that something won't come into you. The same way, if you stop resonating, with just a snap, just the way he did, well, the things around him, and he can materialize things rather quickly, by the way, it would obviously stop around him. So the people, whether even if he liked it or they forced him, they couldn't hang out with him. Or those people that used to control him or destroy him, they couldn't hang out with him. Talk about your family life, your father not accepting you. Sure. And we kind of talked about that as well. So, father not accepting me is because father, again, very sensitive. He started to understand who, say, Freddie was at a deeper level. And it wasn't about his homosexuality or anything like that. But it's like, and he started to notice that, well, he's not human. So his father, from a again very sensitive, he's trying to pull him back into say that human status, but he just didn't know what to think about. Overall, a loving family, a caring family, maybe sometimes, from what I'm seeing, a kind of a suffocating family from what he says, but the way he says, looking back at it from, say, a different or a higher perspective, now that he's not here anymore, he's telling me that, they weren't suffocating, they were just human. So that's, from, say, a human standpoint, I guess they would be the perfect family, and the type of family that he would actually, say, engage in or wanted to be, if he knew that this is how human type families, say, existed. His father overall loving, but in that culture, the father had to be the disciplinarian and so on like that. So coming from an old school of like having strong kids or creating strong children, right? That's the father's role, so to speak, especially in those cultures. Freddie didn't see it that way. Freddie see it from a higher human perspective. So he expected things to be different, right? More of a intelligent or intellectual type process of understanding it or motivation versus, the normal discipline that unfortunately most families have. Why did you begin calling yourself Freddie, and then ultimately changing your name to Freddie Mercury? And again, I don't know if you heard me say, because it's, again, the recording here. I'll have to fix that. So the reason why, I was seeing a school, you might have been sent away for school, from what I'm seeing, into a foreign country, foreign land, or where they spoke English, and his name was Farouk, or um, turning into, they called them Freddies, and then the name stuck, from what I'm seeing. So, so that's how Freddie came about. Mercury, since, again, he would go into, say, different realities, right? The stars, so to speak. He always looked up. Why he chose Mercury? Mercury. Mercury to him was kind of a. He's telling me a vengeful, say, planet, or a vengeful frequency, to him. And not vengeful in, getting attacking back, but trying to like instigate people, or, trying to instigate, say, when somebody like pushes you, to be your best, or questions you, to bring out, say, all the bullshit that you, say, believe in. So for him, Mercury, say, represented that type of personality, right? That instigator that would come out and push you, um, push you or pull your weaknesses out, right? Show your weaknesses. So that's the Mercury part, of his name. So, and then Mercury also had, say, more of a masculine type identity as well. More of a stronger bearing type, um, identity that he wanted to portray as well. And the reason why I say that, and it's probably in this question, the questions below. So, as he's telling me now, is that he didn't consider himself homosexual. However, if you are running from, say, a more higher standard of a human, you would, and he didn't quite, yeah, from what he's telling me as well. Obviously, he wasn't, say, that perfect higher level human, only in certain aspects. He didn't quite integrate. So there was at that level, if you're that higher human, you would hold, well, a higher frequency of both men, a manly frequency and a feminine frequency. So for him, being in a masculine body, and then running higher frequencies of both, kind of distorted him or threw him off. So he would um, he would err from what I'm seeing, more of a feminine type frequency. Hence, you would be more of a homosexual type. Yeah. And by the way, I have no judgment on that. I'm just trying to read it. So he was basically a little confused on well, what should he be? Again, different than say normal individuals who are heterosexual even, or homosexual, or lesbian. So yeah. Anything else? So for the most part of his life, I guess you could call him bi. And again, not your normal standard definition of bi. Okay? But just running, say, a more or higher, say, understanding, right? Because you're more of that expansive human, like I talked about earlier with him, and well, being female and male would also be more expansive, but again, not doing it quite right. If he had to choose, so from what he's telling me, he would so what that means is that at spirit level, right? If you're awakened and he knew that he was running the patterns that I described, from a third person perspective, if he had to choose, he would be female. If he had to do it again, so to speak, now that he knows what or how he's running. So, by the way, he does know, as I talk to him, working on him as well, because even that consciousness, they can expand and evolve, right? And that's what's cool about these these segments that I do. It's not just for entertainment. Imagine that I can help you tap into, say, the consciousness of a Freddie Mercury or Albert Einstein or whoever that that, say, interview, that allows you to, say, leapfrog. So what that means is that you have your personality traits, or level of intelligence, or potential. Now you're merging in with a consciousness, another consciousness. So you would, say, put your flavor of that consciousness into your consciousness. So now you're expansive, again, kind of leapfrogging. This is where inventions, this is where I can take people, and they have access to a certain level of invention or consciousness. Well, say we jump into, say, an Albert Einstein, or in this case, a lot of musicians. Listen to this, and maybe I could do a meta healing on that. So if you want that, shout out Masei, Masei, Massi, at massajati.com. Say, hey, you know what? I want to really integrate with, say, Freddie Mercury's consciousness to learn and expand, or even see or sense or experience what he felt. And we can do that. So again, if you're interested in that, email it to massei at massajati.com, and I'll formulate that with Freddie. So where was I? Just give me a second to, again, a lot of knowledge coming through. You've been known to say you didn't want to grow old. What do you believe was the real reason why you died so young? That's not the reason, by the way, why you died so young. Although, well, I'll just tell you, from what I'm seeing and what he's telling me, or that consciousness is telling me, is that, if you're seeing this reality from a different set of eyes, right? Not so much a different level of human eyes, and you look at the possibilities that are out in different realities or different realms, right? Aging is a myth that is created in this realm. And it's not just theory. It's not what I say. It's not what EI says. It's not about. Although that's what we say. Not what Freddie's saying. If you look in other cultures who take care of themselves, they have a different belief system. They eat different foods. They really don't age. I was in the Amazon. A 70-year-old guy, looked like in his 40s. skin tone, hair, everything in his 40s, right? So the way we age, that's the way Freddie didn't want to do it. He didn't know any other way, though. So at a conscious level, but at a deep intrinsic level, deep psyche level, well, he knew that aging was not, say, the right way to do it, as well as other societal, say, norms. So, so that's why he didn't really want to age. Was there a reason? There's some knowledge coming in, but I just can't quite access it. So we'll continue on, and I'll probably split this up into a couple podcasts. So open to look out for that. Hopefully that'll kind of build up for me. Very, very important though, about the death space.
For more information on my programs, please visit masajady.com. That's MASSAJADY.com.